Hey, what's happening everyone? Journeyman here and welcome back to a Journeyman's Journey. Today it is chapter 1 part 9. Obviously we are still in charge of f.c.slonim and today is going to be a season 3 preview episode. Now I said in the last episode that I would do a season 2 recap. I decided to skip the recap and instead of playing a meaningless game, we're going to talk about what is going to lie ahead in season 3 first. Obviously, if you remember, we were promoted to the Belarusian highest league, and obviously we were crowned champions of the Belarusian first league. I've got some photographs for you here of the celebration mid-pitch, as you can see, having a whale of a time there, obviously being crowned champions and obviously winning our first trophy in this Journeyman save. So honestly, this episode is going to be a little bit more of a stage building for the season ahead of us. It's going to be a very, very tough season, and I've made a lot of moves. I signed a little bit of a Southampton legend, as it were, to help us out with this season. I'll introduce you guys in just a few moments. Now, going into the season, obviously, we're up against some very, very, very tough opposition. Some very, very well-known Belarusian teams, such as Bate, Borisov and stuff. They play in the Champions League. I mean, I'm not quite sure how we're going to compete with them on the field, financially, off the field. It's just going to be a very, very tough season. As you can see here, we're predicted to finish 14th place in the table, and it's going to be a pretty struggle. Honestly, my goal for this season is just to survive. With that in mind, I've made a ton of moves. Let's go introduce you to the players coming into the squad. Alright, the first player coming in is going to be Dion Gizan, who is a Dutch attacking midfielder. Can also play on the right wing as well as on the left if necessary. Now, I brought him in because I wanted to add a little bit more depth to the centre of midfield. Thinking I was going to lose Valery Senko, but this guy's going to be a very creative player for us in the middle of the park, and I'm excited to get going with him and seeing how we can utilise him to his best abilities. Next is a free signing from US, who is a defender, Ilya Buyaki. This gives us a bit more options at centre half. It's a bit more depth back there. In the Belarusian highest league, there is no under 20 requirements. There is a maximum foreign players. We can start to use foreign players now in the squad, by the way. But there's no minimum here, so I decided to try and load up full of quality talent. This is the guy that I highlighted as a really good, solid free agent signing. As you can see, very strong, decent in the air, just a no-nonsense centre-back to help us out. Next, the born and experienced campaigner Timo Achenbach, a German left wing-back, likes to really get forward, support the attacking phase, which is good because I like to utilise wing-backs. He's on the downturn of his career, and he signed a 1-year deal with us, so I'm hoping to get the most out of him and his experience. Obviously, what he is lacking, though, is pace, as you would expect. He used to play for Borussia Dortmund back in the day, as you can see. Borussia Dortmund too, mostly, but still, he was a product of the Borussia Dortmund system, so we know he's got talent to burn. Now, this is the Saints legend I was telling you about, a little bit of a nomadic player, Papa Wago. Played for Southampton when they were in League One the season we went into administration and we won the Johnson's Paint Pot Trophy. Didn't score many goals for us, so he only scored 5 goals, I believe. And yeah, he was on loan from Fiorentina at the time, only got 5 goals, but honestly, it was a really weird player in the sense that you can not expect him to do the unexpected, and I brought him on board for a pretty reasonable deal, to be honest with you. He'd be primarily used as a striker this season, but can also play outside as an inside forward as well. Nevertheless, he's a very good experienced campaigner, 36 years old, 15 caps to his name. It's good to have him on board, and I'm hoping I can see him get a few goals this year. Next in, I bought a defensive midfielder, Georgios Bouzakas. So I wanted to increase the number of defensive midfielders we have because I do have a tactical adjustment in mind as we take the step to the highest level. This guy is a very, very solid defensive midfielder, primarily uses a halfback, which means he can kind of slot in as a third centre back, etc. Big guy too, 6'3", very, very strong, very good in the air, can also play time at centre half if necessary. Next up, we brought in a right back, a Greek right back, Angelos Zobalakis, to challenge Hajaka for that first team spot. Again, about increasing competition in the first team and obviously giving myself plenty of options and trying to improve the squad quality as a whole. It was going to be key if we're to stand any chance of surviving. And signing players like Zobalakis definitely helps us in our course to do that. Next up is striker Kubali Turk Yilmaz, who is an Austrian striker. Very, very talented, actually. He's got a lot of good attributes about him and definitely a little bit of growth left in him too. He's only 23 years old, potentially a 4.5-star player, 4-star player currently right now. Naturally a poacher, and he'll obviously replace Vladimir Salamanca, who unfortunately the club wouldn't let him loan us loan him back to us. I wanted to bring him back naturally. I mean, he finished top goal scorer last year with 20 goals, and I wanted to bring him back, but I couldn't. So instead, I went shopping for another striker, and this is one of the guys that I found, and I expect him to do pretty well. He's a pretty well-rounded striker, can do a little bit of everything. Acceleration's good, strength is good, pace is good, finishing's 13, not bad, composure's a 9, off the ball movement is 13 too, so that's all good stuff, and I'm expecting and hoping he'll get a few goals this year. All right, next up we got Sasa Blagovic, who is a centre-half, an experienced one of that, 31 years old, Serbian centre-half, signed on a free transfer, 4-star current ability, doesn't have a ton of pace, and honestly, he's okay. He's just a good experienced centre-half to have, and he's better than the players we had already. All right, next was another striker here, Arsene Konstadalov, signed in from Minsk to obviously were in the Belarusian First League. Only got himself 1 goal last year, but he definitely is a bit better than that. I honestly, I'm not quite sure why he only got 10 games and he got 1 goal. His finishing is very good at 14, composure's 10, pace is good, 2, strength is so-so. He's 6'2". He's only quite young as well, 22 years old, so I'm not quite sure what happened at Minsk, but whatever the case is, he's a pretty decent player, and I expect to try and get him involved some point in this season. Next up was another centre-half here. This signing was a 3-1 from Chist. He was pretty much a regular first-team player for Chist. He could play right back as well as centre-half, so it gives us extra versatility. But as you can see, some of his base attributes are actually pretty good for a 23-year-old. Ignore these current ability ratings up here. I actually think he's much better than that. Physically, he could do a bit better work on acceleration. The strength is okay. He definitely can grow into a very solid physical player. Mental ability, though, is kind of where he ticks a lot of boxes. Aggression, anticipation, bravery, composure, concentration, all above 10 there. As you can see, position is pretty good too. Concentration is important to have in a defender, so it's good that he sits at 11. Work rate is good as well. Honestly, I'm not quite sure what happened for him at Chist, but nevertheless, it's a good free agent signing. All right, and then I managed to bring back Valery Senko, and as we know, Valery was a huge part in our promotion push last year, so it's great to have him back in the first team. So honestly, I want to see him keep growing and developing, because he's got some potential. He's got a 5-star potential according to my assistant manager, and yeah. Anyway, big things expected of him this year. He had a great year last time out. Got himself 6 goals, 3 assists, and 4 Men of the Match awards. He had a very good campaign for us, so it's a delight to bring him back on a free transfer. All right, and more players keep coming in. This guy is a left winger, and a very talented left winger as it is. So Sitko obviously was getting a bit on now, 36 years old. So to bring in kind of a replacement. So Igor Visacentovic comes in, the Serbian, and just an out-and-out winger, very solid, as you can see. A lot of 9s, a lot of 10s, and just overall, just a pretty solid winger, to be honest with you. I'd be interested to see what I can do with him. He played previously for Bukanost Krosek, who is apparently an unplayable team in Serbia. So yeah, that's really all I know about him. Yet to see him in action, but I'm excited to see him when it happens. Now, you might remember this guy, Igor Matveev, came back in on a free transfer to join us. The complete wing back obviously was here at the beginning of our time here at Slonim, and I brought him back in. He was a free agent. His contract was up, and I thought, hey, why not bring somebody originally from the squad back in for the season? He's really not a bad left back as well, so he'll definitely challenge the left backs we have right now to a first team spot, but he's going to have to do a bit of work, no doubt, for him to get his place back. All right, and I brought in another striker. This one actually has a ton of potential as a target man for us. Andrei Antiyuk, signed him on a free transfer from Orsha, who, sorry, it came was £5,000 actually, not sure why. I think it was a compensation issue. But anyway, he signed for Orsha, got himself 7 goals in overall competitions last year. That's a pretty decent return. So we got him for 5k in, and big things are expected of him. He's only 24 years old, which means he can still grow and develop a bit more. Just a very strong, capable striker, finishing's 12, composure's 11. Overall, I want to see how I can utilize him more, because it's nice to have a target man on the squad. We didn't really have that as an option last year. We had some players that were okay in the air, but we never were a specialist, and obviously this guy is a specialist guy in the air. So maybe we can get on a few more, end on a few more crosses next year. Obviously we are utilizing wingers, so why not have a target man in there too? So hopefully Andrei Antiyuk will live up to my expectations and provide me those options. All right, next in, I bought in a goalkeeper. Obviously, had to bring in a new goalkeeper. Konchatenko was on loan. I actually bought him back, by the way, for another season, but he wasn't really going to be good enough for the highest league. So I bought him Radion Sayamuk, an experienced Ukraine goalkeeper. Played for Slavia Mosra the last couple of years and did a pretty decent job. As you can see, not a great record as far as goals conceded. He only got himself 10 clean sheets over 2 seasons, but I expect that to go up a little bit. Bought him in for £3,600, and overall, I actually think he's a bit of an upgrade for Konchatenko. So good signing overall. Experienced goalkeeper, just what you need when you jump a level. All right, next up was another free agent signing recommended by my scouts. I'm not quite sure why he was so highly recommended, but I thought I'd give him a go. He was a free transfer, and he's already valued at 6.25k, so maybe the game is telling me something I'm not seeing here. But overall, it's a winger. We needed more options on the right side, and he'll provide us that at very least, but otherwise I'm not quite sure why my scouts recommended him, so I'm just putting blind faith in their judgment. All right, next I brought in a backup, a young goalkeeper, Artem Denisenko. I just wanted to strengthen the options at the goalkeeping department. This guy does have a little bit of potential. He comes in a very cheap deal, £40 a week. Nothing really special about him. Obviously going to use him as kind of a side project, see if we can grow him into a starting goalkeeper in the future, but for now he'll be our third choice. All right, and last but not least, the most recent signing, Igor Pantic. Comes in as a holding midfielder, can also play centre half as well. Again, I am going to use a second formation this year for away games, and I need a defensive midfielder. So obviously bringing in two like I have is going to be important. Make sure we have decent squad depth and decent squad rotation. So this guy actually is pretty promising. He's only 23-year-old Serbian. If we're in a half-star potential, accountability, 4.5-star potential ability. Yeah, and I mean, honestly, you can see his attributes in front of you there. He's pretty well rounded, and again, he's just a better player that makes the overall squad a bit stronger this year. So going into pre-season, I've lined us up 7 friendlies over the 6 weeks that we have during pre-season. You'll notice that the first 3 games are up against pretty tough opposition. Lviv, I believe, play in the Ukraine Premier League. They do. Dynamo Minsk play in the highest league that we're currently in. So we're up against, and then we get Slust, who are also in the higher league. So it gives us 3 very, very tough opponents to begin with, and I'll take a look at the squad, and obviously then we'll be able to judge effectively where we're going to be at as far as quality goes. Mix 2, Slust, I believe, finished mid-table. Minsk were kind of upper mid-table, and Lviv, I believe, they're actually still playing the Ukraine Premier League, and they're 5th. So against 3 different levels of opposition that play in the highest league, so it gives us a good look at our squad and how they're going to compete against the tougher opposition. And after that, we've kind of got 4 kind of gimmies. As you can see, these should be very comfortable wins. So, anyway, let's move on to staffing chains. Oh, yes, by the way, remember Oleg Garishmet, who's got 5 goals in the first game of this series. I said I wanted to keep him on staff, and I managed to do so. In fact, he is my new director of football. Yep, he retired. He hung up his boots over the off-season, so Oleg is going to be a director of football. And as you can see, he's not a great director of football, but he's there more of an ambassadorial role for me. I like to keep players on, especially favourites of mine, on in some kind of capacity that's not really not really take into account how good they are or anything, but in any sense, it's great to have him on the backroom staff, and yeah, just honestly, it's cool to have him as a director of football. Club-wise, our stature grew a little bit. We're now a regionally recommended player. Unfortunately, our finances, as you can see, are insecure right now. Obviously, a lot of that's to do with the money we spent over the summer as bringing in quality of talent, but the predominant issue actually is the fact that the highest league requires us to have a heat-insulated field or under-soil heating, and that's costing the club £1 million. So, and a club like us, £1 million is a ton of money, and it's going to put us into a lot of problems later down the line. So, as long as we can survive this season, we'll take it. We'll think about what we're going to do there in the next step as far as his career goes. But I think long term, if the club has to keep shelling out that kind of money, it's going to be very, very difficult for Slonim to compete. But any sense in the world, we'll give it our best shot. We'll make sure the club survives. We'll try and give them plenty of future and high-end talent before we leave. But I'm thinking, depending on how the season goes, this might be my last, depending on the financial instability of this football club. We'll have to take a look, of course, when that time comes. But as for now, I plan to just do 1 season in the highest league, keep them up, and then move on to a new challenge. Alright, so tactically speaking, obviously, players are still on vacation right now, and this is how the current first team looks. So, I'm actually okay with how this is set up. So, we're going with the classic 4-2-4. I'm going to stick with the same style and formation that I used to get promoted. I felt like we should give it a shot. It worked so well for us last year. So, as you can see, it's pretty decent, honestly. There's a few gaps in the team, potentially Mikkel Tarver at ball and midfielder. Even Zubalakis at right wing back is only a 2.5-star rating, as the other Ackenbach is the left wing back at 2.5 stars. But overall, it's a pretty strong looking lineup, and one that should be able to compete with at least the mid to lower half of the table. The reason I'm primarily focused on lower mid is simply because you look at the top here, like Barte are going to predict to finish fourth this season. That's got so much talent in their squad. I mean, it just oozes quality and talent, and they're paying wages that honestly we really can't compete with on a week-to-week basis. They got players well over £1,000 a week and regular internationals, and it's just going to be a very tough task, but what I'm looking forward to nevertheless. And talking about different formations too, on the away games, what I might utilize is do this. It's a 4-1-4-1 a formation with halfback or an anchorman, depending on who's fit and who's available, which is why I wanted to bring in, obviously, our two defensive midfielders, Bazarkas and Pantic, just to give us options in there. But obviously, I might have to switch to this style just to be a bit more defensive, because obviously, this formation is a very attacking formation. It worked well for us against the weaker opposition, but it might struggle and might leave us too exposed against better teams. So switching this kind of formation and a halfback anchorman is going to give us kind of almost 3 centre halves and still allow the wing backs to push on with a little bit of license to go forward and support the attacking team. But hopefully it'll work for us. Obviously, we'll give it a go in pre-season. We'll make tweaks and adjustments and get this team ready for the season. Alright, so that pretty much wraps up the episode here. This is how the first team looks. As you can see, it's very deep. The only rules we have to really concern ourselves about are the fact we have to have a minimum 2 goalkeepers in the squad, which is fine. A maximum of 5 foreign players in the first 11. Obviously, we signed a number of foreign players, so we have to keep an eye on that. We've got to make sure we balance it out with Belarusian players. So as of right now, this starts in 11, which I consider my best 11. Right now we're using 5, so we meet the requirements. Obviously, I've got to make sure we have plenty of Belarusian players on the bench in case we get any injuries and suspend or sending offs and things like that. But overall, things are looking pretty good, pretty ready. And I'm going to take obviously this pre-season now to really assess the squad and see what areas you might need to improve on dramatically. Again, my goal is to stay up. If I can stay up, I pretty much consider myself taking SloNim as far as I can take them. But we'll have to see. Obviously, there's a lot of games left to play this season. We play 30 games this year compared to the 28 of last year. And what else do we have to talk about in this league? Something else, wasn't there? I don't think that. I think I've covered everything. I think I've covered everything. Maybe. I don't know. If I think about it, I'll talk about it in the next episode. But yep, that's going to wrap it up. Obviously, I just wanted to do a Season 3 preview this year rather than a Season 2 recap. I felt like setting up the season so I can go straight into the action on opening day will be better than doing a boring end of season game at the last season, especially when it didn't mean anything because we already crowned as champions, already got promoted, so it would have been kind of silly and pointless to do that one. But I felt like I should do a setup to the season anyway. And so yeah, let me know what you guys think. I might do this in the future as well for the Save Our Saints series, and I might continue doing it for this one too. So yeah, let me know your feedback. Obviously, anything you want to see with the club as well, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll definitely take that into consideration when I do future episodes. But so far, I'm looking forward to the season. As I said, depending on how it goes, it could be my last. So I hope you guys will stick along for the ride. But thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, do me a favor, smash a like on it. And if you want to see more from me in the future, please hit subscribe to notifications on. Appreciate you guys watching and all support for Season 2. And I'm looking forward to getting Season 3 started. But thanks so much for watching. See you guys soon. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.